Hello. So I'm very slightly early. I think it's probably about 30 seconds to time to start. I see a couple of you already here. So this is the 11th live stream, guided sleep meditation live stream. And obviously, if you're watching this not live, then just skip about 30 minutes in if you just want the story, and if you want the chat and ideas being given, etc., then obviously watch through. Hello. Yeah, I do. I have a little furry hat on my head. Um, so, and I can read your comments. That's a very good positive after last week. So, yeah, so if you aren't a subscriber, feel free to subscribe if you find this interesting or any of my other sleep stories interesting. I post about 3 every week, one of them being the sleep story created from these live streams, so I never know what that's going to be, how it's going to go, what ideas I'm going to get given. And how it works is I get given ideas by yourselves, and then I somehow kind of just try and weave it together and hopefully create some kind of a story. So no pressure. And obviously, if you like it, give it a thumbs up. And if you have any comments, especially if you're watching this afterwards, then feel free to comment below. But for now, feel free to comment in the little live chat bit. I have a few jumpers, and I've been wearing Christmas jumpers for a while, for as long as I can get away with. I think they just get more Christmassy the closer to Christmas that I get, because I can get away with it more. So while we wait for a few people to join in, I just thought I would say a few bits and pieces. Today I got my monthly YouTube update. They send me an email every month saying, here's what's been going on your channel for the last month. So I gained 3,500 subscribers, which is very good. My average is since I said my web's YouTube channel will only focus on sleep stories. Before I said that, I'd get about 1,500 subscribers a month. So 3.5 is very, very good. And 9.5 million minutes of my videos have been watched over the last month. And I've had 1,285 comments on my videos over the last month. So when I don't kind of get to people's comments, that's why, because I do get a lot of comments on my channel. But also YouTube doesn't actually tell me most of the comments that people post, which is irritating. I randomly stumble on comments. I click on like old videos and then suddenly see that there's new comments, and I've never kind of seen those comments, and so it'd be nice to get notified of them. So generally YouTube doesn't tell me if someone replies to someone's comment, and it doesn't tell me so on any of my videos, and it doesn't tell me if the comment is on an old video. I think it's like 500 videos back or something, or 300 videos back, I don't know. So yeah, but I get a lot of comments on my videos, and so it's very difficult to keep up with them. Sometimes it's almost a full-time job just to try and reply. The other thing I kind of wanted to mention, just very few people might watch this video, but just for those who do watch it, those of you who've been around a long time on my channel will know that I've had big frustration with YouTube trying to stop them putting ads in the middle of my videos. I am wearing a furry Christmas hat. Yeah, so I never ever set ads in the middle or at the end of any of my meditation, self hypnosis, sleep story type videos, because it would totally defeat the whole point of those videos. But a little over a year ago, so sometime towards the beginning, I think, of last year, people started telling me on my channel that they were seeing ads in the middle of my videos that were waking them up. And so I sort of said, well, the ads aren't turned on my, I'm, as a creator, I set, YouTube says, where do you want ads to show in your video? And I never set ads for the middle or the end. So I then obviously checked and was correct. It was, they weren't on. Contacted YouTube, who said, nope, you're wrong, it doesn't happen. Eventually, after months of backwards and forwards with YouTube and them saying you need evidence, some subscribers actually managed to screen capture ads coming on and showing the little yellow dashes to show that ads were coming on. YouTube still said, no, the only way that could be happening is if you're showing it and you're setting it yourself, because it doesn't happen. And then about 2 or 3 months ago, YouTube did an announcement on their own web. They've got their own channel where they do announcements for creators to find out what's been going on. They said, yes, we are doing that. We've been trialing it for about a year of putting ads in the middle of videos to make more money. So if a creator doesn't have ads on, YouTube overrules that decision, which makes it pointless giving us the choice, overrules that decision and puts ads in the middle of our videos, whether we like it or not. And so I just sort of wanted to mention this again, because over the last week or two, I've had dozens of comments on different videos from people being angry at me about this, kind of saying, about it being money grabbing, or about it making the stories completely pointless to listen to. But if I'm going to stick ads like 3 times through the middle of a 30-minute story and all this sort of stuff. And yet, obviously, I never, ever put these ads in there. So none of that's me. That's all stuff YouTube is doing. I've got to have ads at the beginning because I've got to make some income from doing this. But I know that obviously YouTube's thing is, if you put ads in the middle and ads at the end, you make like 3 times more income. I'm not interested in making 3 times more income. I'm interested in making sure that the stories actually help people, but that I do make something, so I have the ads at the beginning. But yeah, the Honest Guys, they did a video recently to their subscribers saying the same thing, saying, we've had all these mid-roll ads put in that we're not deciding to have. And obviously that means that sometimes you're trying to watch a relaxing video, whether it's a meditation, sleep story, self-hypnosis, and you get ads, and yet you're not the creator isn't the one doing it. So the Honest Guys have spoken about it. I've spoken about it quite a lot. Ads are always much noisier. This obviously goes with TV ads as well, that to be catching, they always make them much noisier than whatever the video is. Someone said to me, I wouldn't want one after the intro. I'd rather just have the ad at the beginning and leave it at that. That's enough. I don't want to have it that you watch a 30-second intro and then have to watch another 30-second ad and then have to get back to the story. I'd rather just have the ad at the beginning and then you watch whatever the story is. But yeah, so it's very annoying. And someone said to me, because of things like the ads, could I turn up the volume on my stories so that if the ads come on, there's not as much volume difference. The trouble is, because of how ads are set, that they're always louder than the videos. All that would happen is that the video would be louder, so you turn the volume down to listen to it at the normal volume, and the ad would still be louder than my video, meaning that you'd have exactly the same problem. I've just had to make it louder. And if I get too loud, then obviously I'm going to start having bad audio quality because I'm clipping by hitting the top range of my equipment. So anyway, so it's just something I wanted to make sure I mentioned again, because literally in the last couple of weeks, it's been happening a lot again. Um, and yeah, so I just wanted to kind of say that. So it's a bit of an aside, but let's have a look, see what people have said. I've moved my microphone around. It just happens to be that my stand, I've changed the setup of my stand a bit. And so the easiest way to do this video was to keep the stand as it is, but just put the microphone here. So, yeah, I've got my probably loudest, most Christmassy Christmas jumper on today. Just trying to keep warm, but also festive. It's not Christmas yet, but I like it. So hello to all of you from different parts of the world. When I used to do a lot of online therapy with people, like sort of a bit like this, but obviously I can see the other person. I would end up doing therapy at stupid hours, I've done therapy with people in Israel, and then done therapy with people in Hawaii, and then done therapy with people in the UK, and then I just don't sleep. I kind of do and don't feel sleepy when I tell a story. The general rule in therapy, in hypnosis, in meditation, is that I don't have any jumpers that light up. The general rule when you're doing these things is that you lead clients or you lead other people. So you go first. So if you want someone to be confident, say I'm doing hypnosis for confidence, I've got to sit up straight. I've got to then make it so that I'm feeling confident, so that I project that. See, just doing this, my voice changed unintentionally just because I started sitting confidently to talk about it. So you go first and lead a client. And so that goes for the same when making things like the sleep stories, that you need to go first. You need to kind of be talking and relaxing, letting yourself drift off, so that you go from wakeful towards a sleeping kind of deeply relaxed state, and you have the client, or in this case the viewers, listening along and following my lead. So it's far less effective if I just carry on talking like this the whole time and trying to give orders to someone and say, okay, now you're going to fall asleep and feel tired, and that doesn't work. But if you start feeling sleepy and talking like you're falling asleep, others start feeling the same, and so it kind of guides them. Yes, in this case I don't have a person in front of me, but and when I used to make self-hypnosis tracks for people, so clients would ask me, or people would contact me and say, could I make them self-hypnosis tracks? I would do the same there. I would hallucinate them in a chair in front of me, and I would hypnotize the hallucinated version of them, and I'd respond to exactly what that hallucinated version of them does. So if the hallucination of them shifts in their chair, I would say, that's it, you can shift around a little bit and get yourself comfortable. So I would comment on the hallucination, and people would then do what I had hallucinated that they would do, which was always interesting. And then they would wonder how on earth I knew they were going to react that way. And my ideas in this case, they come from you lot. But ordinarily, the ideas, I just come up with like 6 or 7 random words, and then I create a story out of it. Past life regression, I don't have any evidence to believe in it, but I do find it very interesting, and so I do study things like that to look into things like that. But I haven't seen any evidence, sort of concrete, scientific, peer-reviewed evidence that suggests that it's a possible thing. But the I'm not going to get into it here because I'll run out of time. But the things with past life regression is the stuff that people come up with. You can predict what someone's going to come up with in advance. So there was a UK TV program that had past life regression on it every week, where a hypnotist would hypnotize a different celebrity, and that celebrity would then go back into a past life, and then they would have a historian who would investigate that past life and see what was accurate. But you could actually watch the bit where the celebrity is talking about what they expect to gain from the experience, etc., pause the program, and then say exactly what will happen during their past life regression experience that they're about to have, and then unpause it. They'd get hypnotized. They wouldn't be led. They would just be asked to go back to a past life. So just based on what you've learned about them, about their expectations, about their beliefs, you would know what their past life experience is about to be. And so I found that quite interesting. So from a pattern matching perspective and from the unconscious mind doing stuff, I think it's all very, very interesting. I'm from the UK, which is why this is at UK 10 p.m. So my night time, which helps with me being tired. And I've no idea what story I like best out of all the stories I've done. I've done on my channel, I think I've done about 161 stories. And I've no idea which one I like best. The one I listen to most if I need to sleep is my Prince's Adventure story, which I made in like 2003 or something like that. I still just listen to that because it's the one that's currently on my channel. I think is 50 minutes long, but the original was 60 minutes long. So it's yeah, that one I find has helped me when I've had the flu, and it's helped me when I've struggled to sleep or anything like that. So how this works is obviously you lot give me ideas for things. So it could be just random kind of words, things to include. So obviously you've just commented to have a unicorn in the story. So I would then take those different ideas and try and create some kind of story out of it. And obviously I try and start the story at 10:30. And if the ideas are too specific, then I can't do them because there's no way I'm going to be likely to be able to fit it in. But where they're more generic, like random words and things, then I can normally find a way of fitting it in. The hardest thing is reading my own handwriting without suddenly pausing for a long period of time to try and read my handwriting. Yeah, I don't think I've had elephants in a story for quite a long time. I'm trying to remember if someone has mentioned elephants before. I'm pretty sure elephants have come up in one of the live streams. Oh no, I chose not to do it. I did a story 2 days ago for my channel where I was going to do a motorbike, and the story ended up taking a turn where it was going through the Arctic. So a motorbike wouldn't have been particularly helpful. So it became a snowmobile. But I've done the motorbike one where it's the adventure story of the person going up the mountain, kind of a Indiana Jones kind of story, and the person's on a motorbike on that one. You want a story of feeling lost. Whenever I do that sort of thing, I have to be careful not to have people end up complaining that it made them feel bad. Um, Past pets. Let me try and spell. And obviously, this is all you do in therapy. When you're doing therapy, the client gives you lots of ideas, like you lot are doing to me here, um, and you then just feed all those ideas back to the client in as helpful and therapeutic way as you can. Hello to you from Morocco. Everyone wants fairies. I think nearly every week there's been fairies in the stories. And it seems that in the live stories, a lot of you like cats as well. I have to make sure I can read my handwriting as I go. Elephant fairies. So African elephants with the tiniest little wings. A bit like the caterpillar from, what is it, Bug's Life? Rainbow's a cool name. The interesting thing, or something I find interesting, is that obviously you guys here will know why bits are in the story, whatever it is I create. And I think this with all the live stories that that you lot know why I've done certain things and put certain things in there, and yet others obviously listen and have no idea at all why some random thing has occurred, like the mushrooms and stuff, um, and rats on Mars and things like that. So let's see. I'm getting quite a good list here of bits and pieces. Yeah, we have had a few eating magic mushrooms going on in stories. Well, I like to think physics goes out the window sometimes in my stories. I try and have some factual stuff in the stories, The odd thing is, obviously, the name is Story, and there will be people who do comment and say that something's factually incorrect or something, but it was done that way because that fitted with the story. Um, let's see, where have I read to? Floating furniture. Thank you for buying the courses. I hope you obviously enjoy those courses. Large buildings. I think I was just saying the other day that I haven't had much time for doing my courses um, lately, like for trying to do new courses or anything, or even write my books. Um, I seem to have become a full-time YouTuber with part-time pay. Um, hopefully that will change. Calming smells. I don't know which one of my books. I've got 31 books, I think, out there. Um, a bunch of autism ones, obviously, about being autistic and what it's like to be autistic, uh, what helps, what doesn't help, strengths, challenges, all the rest of it. Tips and strategies autism book, got parenting book that I've done, a load of hypnosis and therapy books, books on storytelling, all sorts of things. Healing Temple. A long time ago, when Big Brother came to Israel, I had to do an interview with an Israeli magazine about the Big Brother show because I wrote a book about the psychology of Big Brother, the TV show, and so I was interviewed. I had to watch footage of the very first ever Israeli Big Brother, and had to give my views on who I thought would win and who I thought would get on and what have you. Couldn't understand a word of what anyone was saying, and there was no subtitles, so I just had to do it based on what I could see and observe, kind of non-verbally, so including voice tonality and stuff, but not the actual words. That was interesting. I've no idea if I was right. Obviously, I never said this is the person that I reckon will definitely win. I kind of got around it by saying this is the kind of person that would win. Um, and so, if one of them fits that kind of description, they're likely to win. So, I've no idea if who seem to get on the best with people just from watching about 5 minutes. Well, I watched the entrance footage, so the footage of the people coming into the house on that first night and interacting just as they've come into the house. But without all the introduction bits that go on outside the house. It was just literally the them in the house, like when they walk down into the house, one after the other. And I've got a copy of that article somewhere still. I've got the actual magazine. I had to get someone, an Israeli friend of mine, to interpret it because I couldn't understand it, and yet obviously it's quoting me, and I couldn't tell whether I was quoted accurately or not. Right, I will start any second now. Yeah, over here, Big Brother ended. By the time it was going on over there, it was pretty much on its way out over here. Yeah, I've done that kind of thing in my stories where people, obviously, my portals story had the person kind of falling into a portal, um, trying to look into a rabbit hole. So I have a long list of different bits and pieces. I've got my microphone on. That's always good. So I've got my long list here to read along to or follow along, try and create stuff with. So if you're falling asleep to this, then just let me just write that last one down and then I'll carry on speaking. Because it was there before I started. So just take a moment to relax yourself down and close your eyes. And with your eyes closed, you can just listen along to me telling this story in the background. And as you listen along to this story in the background, I don't know whether you'll drift, sleep to the sound of my voice, or drift off to sleep to the spaces between my words. And as you begin to drift asleep, so I'll tell this story in the background. And it's a story about a young girl who's walking out into a fairground. She's visiting a fair that's down by a pier. And she walks onto that pier. You can hear that fairground music, see the lights of the fairground. In the background, she can hear the sounds of the waves crashing on the shore. And the sun's beginning to set. And as the sun sets, so she notices that the lights really stand out. And sometimes they seem to streak on the different rides that spin and move. And she can hear that fairground music different music from different rides. And as she walks along the pier to the fairground, she can glimpse the sea below through the slats in the pier. And she can hear the sound of her footsteps as she walks along, and the sounds of other people milling around, playing different fairground rides and games. And she's heading to one specific ride, a ride she goes on every time this fair's in town. And it's an old-fashioned merry-go-round. And as she walks towards that ride, so she notices that there's no one else on the ride. It's going around, the horses are going up and down, the music's playing, lights are flashing, different colours. The operator is operating that ride, and yet no one's riding it. And she goes over to where the queue should be and waits for the ride to stop. And as she gets let on, she asks why no one's riding it. And the operator explains that she's the only person really who ever turns up and rides this ride. That people want all the computer games inside. People want the games where you can win something. People want to ram into each other on bumper cars. They want to go on roller coasters. No one wants to go on a merry-go-round anymore. And she walks around that merry-go-round to find her favourite horse, the one she sits on every year. And she climbs onto that horse, holds on to the metal bar, and the ride begins and moves up and down, and the music plays. And she watches as the world goes by. And while she spins around on that merry-go-round, going up and down, enjoying that ride, drifting with the music, drifting into the experience, almost becoming one with the experience. She finds that there's something different this time. But while she's thinking about how no one wants to ride this ride anymore, her mind begins to wander and reality begins to change. And as she spins, so everything becomes blurry, a bit like spreading paint across a canvas and smudging that paint. And then a new reality begins to form. And she looks the other side and she can see that all the horses around her are becoming real. And as she looks around, she notices that it's about the middle of the day and she's trotting on a horse through woodland with other horses just following along and keeping up. And then she looks down and realizes that this isn't just any old horse. She notices she's on the back of a pure white unicorn, and she can feel the warmth from the body of the unicorn. She can feel the softness of the side of its neck, and she strokes its hair, stroking its long mane, feeling that in her fingers. As they all ride through the woodland, and something about the experience just feels perfectly natural to her, despite the fact that she was on a merry-go-round moments ago. And she feels like this is the place to be, like she's supposed to learn something from this experience. And as that unicorn separates from the rest of those horses and travels deeper into the woods, so it slows down to a walk, and she can hear that thudding of its footsteps just gently on the mud, the occasional cracking of twigs, the sounds of the rustling leaves overhead as the wind blows a breeze, the occasional dancing shards of light shining down from above on the path in front of her. And she doesn't know why she's on this journey, what she's supposed to experience. She's just aware that it feels as real as it did being on the pier. It doesn't feel like something being imagined. And after a while, that unicorn finds a clearing. The unicorn stops in the clearing, drinks from a stream. The girl dismounts and is surprised when the unicorn talks to her and explains to her that perhaps she's the one destined to bring a bit of magic back into people's lives. That people have forgotten the magic in simple things, in finding enjoyment. And she didn't know how she was going to do this. And so the unicorn asked her to sit down by a tree and to close her eyes, and said that if she's willing, then they can join minds And the unicorn can take her on a journey of discovery. And she likes this idea, thinks it sounds interesting. She sits down under the tree, closes her eyes, and the unicorn tells her to just count along back from 20 to 1, and then the minds will be connected and she'll be able to join them on that journey. And the unicorn begins to count backwards, and the girl begins to count backwards following that, from 20 to 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, connecting deeper and deeper with each other, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then the girl feels a sparkly lightheadedness, almost like there are stars twinkling around her, around the unicorn. And then this flash of rainbow light emanating out from that unicorn, encapsulating her. And even with her eyes closed, she can sense that light as it passes across her eyes, sensing the different colours. She can feel the warmth of that through her body. And she notices her consciousness rising out of her body, travelling over and joining that unicorn. And she settles into that unicorn. She couldn't describe how she settles into the unicorn, but her consciousness settles in, like going and settling into a comfortable place, to somewhere that feels so peaceful and calming to be. Somewhere that on first arrival, you just think this is a nice place to visit. And the unicorn checks that she's okay. And the unicorn can do that telepathically. The unicorn just thinks it. And because they're connected, she thinks back that she is okay. And they can just communicate in that way. And then the unicorn closes its eyes, nods its head ever so slightly while focusing on a destination. And then, in a flash of rainbow light, the unicorn vanishes. And then, as the unicorn opens its eyes, so it's walking through dense forest. And the girl has no idea where this is. It's nothing like the woodland they've come from. And the unicorn says that they're off to meet an old friend. They're off to meet the green fairy. And the girl had always loved the idea of fairies. So she was really excited to be able to meet a green fairy. She'd drawn green fairies before in her school books and when doodling at home, but she never thought she'd actually ever meet one. And the unicorn walked through that forest. Sounds of the forest around them, sounds of monkeys off in the distance, sounds of birds the girl had never heard before. And then that unicorn found a clearing and started walking out into that clearing. And the girl was curious where this fairy would be and why this fairy would be here. And that unicorn started walking over towards a small lake, then started walking along the edge of that lake where the mud was slightly squelchy, and had a drink in the heat of this day. And then continued walking towards a herd of elephants and said, "The green fairy's just over there." And the girl was looking, trying to find out where, trying to catch a glimpse of this green fairy. And as the unicorn neared those elephants, the girl could feel the vibrations through the ground as the elephants stomped around. She was surprised at how large these elephants were, so much larger than the unicorn. And then something surprised her even more. One of the elephants seemed to just so lightly jump up into the air and fly. And then it landed down near the unicorn, so gracefully it barely made a sound. And the unicorn said hello to the green fairy, and the girl was confused. And then the girl noticed the tiniest wings on the back of that elephant. And the wings shimmered in the sunlight and had multiple different colours to them, greens, purples, as they moved. And the girl was deeply confused. And the unicorn explained that the elephant's name is Green, and the elephant is a fairy. And asked, "Were you expecting something different?" And the girl said that they were expecting probably a tiny woman in a dress with wings. And the unicorn found this amusing, that this girl had obtained this rigid thinking, this one way of looking at the world, that things are as you expect. And the unicorn explained that fairies come in many different shapes and sizes. Some are male, some are female, some look human, some look like elephants, some look like cats. Fairies just look different. They're not all just one thing. And the unicorn asked the green fairy to help them to find something. And the girl didn't know what. The girl didn't know what was going to be found. But the unicorn explained that they used to actually have two horns, not one. And they used to also have wings, and that they've still maintained their ability to transcend space and time. But if they can find their horn, the missing horn, then they can help that girl to understand something, to learn and have something to take back, to be able to spread magic through the normal world. And the girl wondered whether a unicorn would be called a unicorn if it had two horns, or whether its name changed at some point. And the fairy used its trunk to hand over a tiny glass bottle with some bright blue liquid and a tiny cork in the top, and said to the unicorn, if you take that, you'll be guided to your horn. And the unicorn, carefully with its lips, popped off the cork, drank the blue liquid, and then after a few moments, could see some sparkling in front of it. And that sparkling worked from in front of it, off, way off into the future, way off into the distance, traveling through space and time, creating a path to follow. And this path would be followed through different lands and different times to find that horn. And the unicorn explained that they won't be able to find it as themselves for the whole journey, because different parts of the journey require different skills, that all they can do is now follow that path. and the unicorn thanked the green fairy. The green fairy went and joined the rest of the elephants, and that unicorn then closed its eyes, moved its head, and then travelled through space and time in a flash of rainbow colours, finding themselves in the middle of a desert. And that unicorn walked through the desert, still following that sparkling, twinkling path, heading towards a man who was sat by some ruins. And the man seemed to be resting and dozing and trying to keep out of the sun overhead. And the unicorn quietly walked over and said to the girl, "We're going to have to become him next." And so the unicorn rested down by that man. And then matched the breathing of that man. And then started counting back from 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. And as the unicorn counted back, so the consciousness of themselves and the girl began to move into that man. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and their consciousness was inside that man's head. And the man was unaware of this. They're essentially just hitching a ride. The unicorn explained that they'll just give an idea. But this man hunts for lost artifacts. And they've obviously just been here in the desert at this ruins to find something. And so the unicorn said that they'll plant the idea for their horn being a lost artifact to be found. And the man awoke, climbed on his motorbike, and just had this compelling feeling to travel out of the desert and to travel towards some mountains. And they had quite a long journey to make. And they enjoyed speeding over the sand dunes, skidding down dunes, finding their way back to the road. Speeding along with the wind in their hair. The feeling of being on that motorbike, taking turns, and feeling that it's a vehicle to have a close connection with the world around you. almost like they could feel part of the world around them through the tires touching the ground. And the mountains were so far away. This man had to stop halfway there as night started to fall. They popped up a tent and a campfire. They made themselves some food. They could smell that food. They could notice their mouth watering from the smell of that food. He ate the food as the sun set and the stars shone in the sky. They gazed up at those stars, looking at all the different constellations, curious about how each one got its name, and curious about the times that each one got their name, and how much or how little they've changed in those times. And then they rested back in their tent, just listening to the gentle sounds around them. They drifted and floated, comfortably asleep, and they slept well all night. And while they drifted and floated asleep, so the girl and the unicorn drifted and floated asleep, almost like their consciousness was connected in a way that meant there was no need to be conscious while the person was sleeping. So they joined them in that sleep, and they joined them in waking up the next day. And the man had something to eat before packing away his tent, getting back on his motorbike and continuing his journey. And after a while, he entered a small town, filled up his motorbike to make the rest of that journey, and then headed up towards the mountains. And as he approached the foot of the mountains, so he noticed the task at hand. He noticed that there wasn't really much of a road, and he would barely call it a track. But he enjoyed adventures, he enjoyed the thrill of riding a motorbike off-road like this. So he revved that motorbike, got it moving. The back wheel spun, and he shot off up that mountain. And as he went higher and higher up the mountain, so the weather got colder and colder. And then after some time, he noticed that there was snow forming, there was ice, and he realized he was going to have to make the rest of this journey on foot. And so he parked up his motorbike and continued this journey on foot. And the girl was glad that she wasn't having to do this, that she was just an observer. And the unicorn acknowledged that they're glad as well, that they wouldn't want to get their hooves up here. And for some parts of the climb, the man had to almost rock climb, had to pull himself up, get up over some large rocks. But he continued that climb. And while he climbed, so he began to notice high up there, near the top of the mountain, was what looked like some ruins of a building, perhaps ruins of a temple. And he continued to climb that mountain towards that temple. And to help him climb, he just focused on his breathing, focused on controlling his breathing. And he used his breathing as a way of keeping his attention on task. And as he neared the summit and neared that temple, so he noticed a kite. He could see the string going down towards the temple and the kite flying in the sky. And the kite had a symbol on it. And as he got nearer, so he noticed what looked like a monk sat on a wall that was partially overhanging the edge of the mountain, with his legs crossed, looking very underdressed for the weather, and yet seeming so peaceful and calm, just gently holding the string of that kite. And he didn't know whether to go and talk to that person, but he was curious about what they were doing. And he went over and he got their attention, and he asked them what they were doing and who they were. And they explained that they're being in the moment and they're being responsive to the moment. They're responding with the tiniest of movements to keep that kite in the air while they're letting the rest of their body deeply relax. And they're controlling the temperature of their body. They're focusing on being warm and comfortable. And they're not allowing themselves to be distracted by anything external until this man had arrived. And they thought that was important enough, an unusual enough an event to take a few moments to talk with them. And this monk explained that they're the guardian of this temple, that people are allowed to come here, but they just watch over them. And this person, the man, explained that they came here for something, that there's a treasure here to be found. And the monk said that you're not here alone. The owner of the treasure has come along to find it. And they're going to have to go through some tests before they can have it. And the man looked around and couldn't see anyone else, and didn't realize that this monk was talking to the unicorn and the girl. And the monk said, "Did you want to take a healing bath? You look exhausted from your travels." And the man expected the worst and thought it would probably be an ice bath somewhere up here. But the monk pointed them in the direction of what looked like the warmest, most comfortable water. And they went over to that outside bath. It was just outside the entrance to the temple. And they climbed into that water. And as they climbed in, so the water started glowing bright blue. They started feeling warm and fuzzy inside, feeling so comfortable. And they could feel that healing passing through them. As that warmth passed through them, they could feel their aching muscles relaxing. They could feel the aching passing. They could feel their muscles softening, their shoulders relaxing, their neck muscles relaxing, their breathing calming and relaxing, the muscles around their eyes, their face relaxing, down their arms relaxing, the muscles through their back relaxing, and the muscles through their stomach, their legs, down to their feet, all relaxing and healing. And they relaxed back, rested their head on the side, closed their eyes, and found that their airways felt so clear, breathing in the steam from this bath. Just enjoying that relaxing in that bath. And they quite liked that difference between the cold air on their face and the warmth of the water. And after a while, they got out of that bath, quickly dried themselves off, got dressed. And then the monk said they could head into the temple. And they pushed open the large wooden door and walked into the echoey temple, hearing their footsteps echo and reverberate around the walls. And the unicorn could notice that that glowing, floating light, that sparkling light, was stronger here. And they knew they were close to finding what they've came for. And then the monk explained, while looking at that man, but talking through that man, that you're going to have to do some challenges first. And the man said they didn't understand what challenges. And the monk said, not you, but you have to do those challenges. And the man was confused. And the monk explained to the man to go and sit down in a chair, to close their eyes. And they sat down in the chair, closed their eyes. And the monk said, just focus on the sound of the bell. And then that monk tapped a bell, and that bell reverberated and rang with a deep reverberation that seemed to pass through the body of that man. And as that man focused on that reverberating bell, he almost felt like he could see the sound waves, just as he could feel those sound waves. He almost felt like he was riding those sound waves deeper into an experience. And the monk wanted that man to follow those sound waves deep into an experience, so that the unicorn could do what they need to do. And as that man relaxed deeper and further away from that conscious part of their mind, so the unicorn was able to communicate freely with the monk. And despite being magic, the unicorn was still surprised that this monk seemed to know they were there, that this monk seemed to be able to communicate with them, because the monk didn't seem like they were from a magic realm. They didn't seem to be magic like the unicorn, like the fairy. And they explained that they stand between worlds, that they're able to communicate with beings from multiple realms and can communicate with any of those beings here in whatever form they take. That they've raised their consciousness up enough to be able to connect on multiple levels like that, and to see more to reality than people realize is there. And so the unicorn wonders what their task is. And they're told that all they have to do is enter a room and then follow their nose. And so, as a consciousness, looking just like some floating light, the unicorn drifts out of that man's body, out of their mind, and floats into another room. And as this floating light in this other room, they notice that the room has diamonds all around the walls, and that light is shining in to this room and reflecting off all those diamonds. creating an almost lattice work, rainbow pattern throughout the room. And the unicorn's told that they have to follow the rainbow. And so they start to absorb themselves into that light. And they start to follow that rainbow around the room, from one diamond to another. And as they do that, so the room turns dark, with just rainbow lights, no walls, nothing solid. And then they discover themselves almost as if they're in space, flying among the constellations, flying from one star to another. And they have to find their constellation. And they know what constellation that is. And so they just have to explore space. And in their mind, they're trying to work out what it looks like from Earth. Because in space, it's all in 3D. And that out here, when you don't have the same perspective, the constellations look different. And so they realize they have to find Earth to find the constellation. And so they follow rainbow light, searching for the right star. And there are so many stars to search. They begin to feel a sense of frustration. And they know it's unusual for them to feel a sense of frustration. But they also know that that's part of this challenge, that they wouldn't have to undergo a challenge if it was easy. And they've seen the night sky so often from Earth. They try and work out which stars they know are nearer to Earth and try and triangulate and figure out a way to the planet. And after some time, they eventually find their way. They notice that it isn't so much about what you can see, but what you can hear. And they can hear which star is the one to head towards. But they can only hear that when they get nearer to that star. And as a consciousness, they head in to the solar system. They pass Pluto, Neptune, Uranus. They head in, eventually passing Saturn, Jupiter. And then seeing the most beautiful dot in the sky. Just a pale blue dot hanging there in the blackness of space. And they head towards that pale blue dot. And then, as a consciousness, they turn and look up and can see their constellation And they fly themselves up in line with that constellation from that perspective, and then find themselves back in that room. And then the monk enters and says this man can now take what's in that chest. And the unicorn travels back to that man, re enters that man psychically, and the man awakens, feeling so calm and comfortable, like they've had the most pleasant sleep. And the monk shows them into the room and says, "Is this what you were looking for?" And the man opens the chest and sees a glowing horn inside that chest. And the man picks that up and can feel it almost pulsating energy in their hands. They put it into their backpack. They thank the monk for letting them take it. And the monk explains that they've been looking after it for thousands of years until the right person came along. And the man then travels back down that mountain, down to their motorbike, and heads back off on their motorbike. And part way along their journey, they pull over at a town. They decide to sleep in a comfortable bed. And so they go to the bed. They relax in the bed and they drift off asleep. But as they drift off asleep, so the consciousness of the unicorn and the girl leave that man. The unicorn goes over to the horn, and the horn seems to disappear and sparkle out of existence as it merges with that consciousness of the unicorn. And then the unicorn and the girl find their way back to the unicorn's body. And as they absorb back into the unicorn's body, the unicorn sparkles and shines and shimmers. Light emanates brightly from all over the body of that unicorn. As a second smaller horn appears on the unicorn's head, and the most beautiful wings emerge from the side of the unicorn's body, near the top of its back. And the girl has a sense of this happening, but from inside the unicorn can't see it. And the unicorn explains that they're back looking how they used to look before they had their second horn removed. And the girl wants to see. So the unicorn closes its eyes, lowers its head, moves its head, and in a flash of light, the unicorn finds its way back to that woodland, to where that girl is resting under that tree, and her consciousness goes over and back into herself there, and she opens her eyes, and she can see that unicorn standing there looking so tall and graceful, with the most beautiful wings, the most pure white, almost glowing look to them. And the unicorn explains that they're Pegasus, and that now they're back as they're meant to be. And the girl climbs onto the back of Pegasus. As Pegasus rides up into the air, she can hear the flapping of Pegasus' wings. She can look down on the woodland, on a stream, down to a small lake. And Pegasus swoops around, lands back down so gently, so perfectly, and trots back into that woodland, and trots back through the woods. And the girl notices that even when Pegasus goes through muddy areas, the mud just doesn't stick. Pegasus just remains so pure and white. And then Pegasus exits the woodland, and finds those other horses. And they all begin to trot back the direction they came. And as they trot back in the direction they came, so the girl begins to hear the funfair music, feel the metal pole she's holding, and almost like a painting being smudged, the experience begins to fade away and smudge away, and she begins to see that fairground, seeing the flashing lights, people on other rides, playing at the different games. And then that merry-go-round comes to a halt. She climbs off of it and heads around, and the operator says, "You seem to have almost zoned out a bit there. Are you okay?" And she says that she's fine. And she walks away from that ride, a little bit lost in thought, curious about the experience, wondering what had just happened. And then she leaves that fairground, leaves the pier, begins to head home. And as she heads home, so she puts her hand into her pocket and is surprised to find that there's something in there. And as she takes her hand out of her pocket, taking out that item, she notices that it's an origami unicorn. And written on the side of that origami unicorn are the words, "Spread a little magic." And then on the other side is just the name, Pegasus. And she holds that tightly in her hand. She feels some tears in her eyes of happiness, of that connection with that experience, with whatever has just happened to her. And she knows that she's going to go through life, trying to spread a little happiness, trying to spread some magic, bring some joy to people. And when she gets home, her parents ask how the fair is. She says it's okay and heads up to bed. She gets into bed and begins to drift and float asleep. And as she drifts and floats asleep, so she begins to dream about the experience. She has this sense of riding on Pegasus and flying over the roofs, and sprinkling a rainbow of magic, a rainbow of light across her hometown, and then expanding that out. She starts to think how she can begin to spread some magic to those around you. And she drifts and floats so comfortably relaxed, asleep, knowing she's going to sleep so well, and wake feeling so refreshed in the morning. And she drifts and falls asleep.